Select Board to order. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
What are you doing?
I have to go to a meeting.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. I just want to start tonight with a moment of silence for Robert Foley, who passed away last week. Bob was very involved in giving back to Grafton, having served on the Finance Committee and the High School Building Committee, so let us take a moment to pause and honor Bob Foley. Okay, we do have a couple of announcements tonight. The 2022 Summer Concert Series comes to a close this week with Claflin Hill Symphony. Come to the Common to see the band tomorrow at 6:30. Registration for the Grafton Recreation's fall and winter programs is now open. Visit graftonrec.com to sign up. And absentee early voting ballots are available from September 6th for the September 6th state primary election. Visit grafton-ma.gov for more information. First up on the agenda tonight is a public hearing for National Grid Institute Road poll petition. If you could read the notice for that.
Sure. The Select Board will be holding a public meeting on the request of National Grid to locate poles, wires, and fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures, along and across the following public way: Institute Road. Institute Road, National Grid to install 3 JO poles on Institute Road beginning at the intersection of Institute Road and East Street and continuing approximately 300 feet in a north direction. Install 3 of new poles and 1 sub-pole to extend primary for new customer service. The public hearing will be held on August 23rd, 2022 and take place in person in Conference Room A at the Grafton Memorial Municipal Center located at 30 Providence Road and via Zoom starting at 7 p.m. The Zoom link will be posted on the August 23rd agenda. The purpose of this hearing is to provide an opportunity for public comment. Anyone wishing to may attend in person or via Zoom. This was posted on the Town Bulletin Board August 1st, 2022 and in the Grafton News August 11th, 2022.
Okay, I can take a motion to open the public hearing.
I move the board vote to open the public hearing. Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Declare the motion carried. Okay, so we are now open for the public hearing. Do we have anybody from National Grid here to discuss the poll petition?
Hi, my name's Robert Williams. I'm here from National Grid.
Good
Hey,
evening.
Robert.
Hi.
Did you want to say anything about the project at all, or are you just here to answer any questions people might have?
I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay. That being said, is there anybody in person or via Zoom that would like to ask any questions or have any public comment about this? Okay, seeing none, I can take a motion for the board to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Declare the motion carried. Okay, and then I guess we can take a motion to approve or deny the poll petition.
I move the board vote to approve and sign the Institute Road poll petition by National Grid.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Declare the motion carried. Okay. Well, thanks for joining us tonight, Robert, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. Same to you.
Up next is road closure and signage request from the Congregational Church of Grafton. So is anybody here to speak on that?
Yes, Joanne Habel.
Hi, Ms. Abel, how are you?
Good evening.
Thank you.
So would you
Are
like
there,
to,
are there any questions?
would you like to just tell us a little bit about, it's for the Apple Pie Social, correct?
It's for our Apple Pie Social. It will be on September 25th from 11 to 3. It's the 43rd year we've done this. And we request that the road in front of the church be closed so that we can transport items and people across that road safely during the hours of the fair and the hour before and the hour after.
Very nice. And we did hear from Chief Crapo that he has no concerns about this. So if the board doesn't have any questions, I can take a motion to close the road.
The only other question, no updates to the irrigation or anything. I know they had noted that they had what they believe, I think, to be the most current plans, so they didn't stake anything into the wrong spots up there. But have we, since there's been construction up there, have we? Do they have an updated copy of that?
I don't know. We can make that happen though.
Okay.
That would be helpful, yes. We are not planning to do too much on the common again this year. As you know, in the past, we've worked from our pandemic year of just doing drive-by pie deliveries and gradually expanded the fair. And we are moving into the common a little bit this year for the first time in several years.
Love it. That was one of the first events in Grafton that my wife and I ever attended. And we've pretty much gone every year. It's fabulous.
Thank you.
All right. If there's no more questions or comments, I can take a motion.
I move the board vote to authorize a road closure at 30 Grafton Common on Sunday, September 17th, and authorize the Congregational Church of Grafton to place signs on the common for their event.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none.
Yes, it's September 25th, not August 17th.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Yes, August 17th is gone.
I amend my motion to Sunday, September 25th.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you have a second to that amendment?
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Declare the motion carried. All right, thank you. Congratulations and good luck with everything.
Thank you very much.
Up next is a one-day music license for the Grafton Farmers Market.
And Jake is here from the
Yep.
farmers market.
Hello.
Jake Morris from the Farmers Market.
How are you?
Good.
Good, how are you?
Good. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the request?
Sure. So it's actually for quite a few markets, the remainder of the markets. We just want to have some acoustic music that's going to be very low because we don't have electricity there, to be playing for some of the shoppers and some of the people that are just sitting around and hanging out. It's just some background noise for 2 hours during the farmers market from 2 to 4.
Very nice. Does the board have any questions or comments?
Is this on the common?
No, it's up at the municipal center.
That's what I thought. Okay. Yep.
Okay. Hearing none, I can take a motion.
I move the board vote to approve a one-day music license for Jake Morris of the Grafton Farmers Market on August 31st, September 7th, September 14th, September 21st, September 28th, and October 5th.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any question or any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Declare the motion carried. Congratulations and have a great rest of your season.
Thank you very much. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jake.
Up next is Holden Farms one-day beer and wine license.
Good evening.
How are you
Gentlemen.
guys?
How's it going?
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. We got rain, so
Not much. Jeez, not much.
it all counts.
Man, oh man.
At least it was more than like a half an hour rain.
So the last time you guys were here was July 19th, and the board was pretty clear about what they needed from you guys, and it doesn't seem to be in alignment with what we received. So if you could just tell us a little bit about that.
What do you mean?
So when you were here on July 19th, you had a Miss Sandra Foy applying for a one-day beer and wine license, and it was very clear that she would be keeping all the proceeds, and that was going to be the separation that was somewhat needed. And now on this new application, it looks like Tyler Holden is applying, which no longer creates that separation, which was necessary.
Well, it's Holden Farm that's applying for it.
Okay. But again, that separation of it needs to be a different entity.
And it is a different entity. The paperwork that I also passed in the IRS forms show the difference of the entities.
Where, okay. So what does the board think about that?
I suggest we have council review it, so based on that explanation, because I didn't get that, looking at the information.
I thought council got that whole packet, and that's why we had to wait until this meeting, because council was reviewing it.
Yeah, so council did review it. I don't think anybody was clear that you submitting that EIN number was your separation between the shanty and Holden Farms.
I mean, I
Says
passed
it
in
right.
both of them,
Right. we passed
just to
both.
show the clarification on the two separate businesses.
So I don't know if that was articulated.
But do you own both businesses?
Me, no. I'm a
No,
I-
but so you're saying you own one thing and you own the other thing?
well, if you look at the IRS forms.
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me, so can you
Says
explain? Trevor.
It's on
It's
the
in
agenda.
packet,
Yeah, can you explain it? Because you're in an open meeting, so I'm asking you to.
Yeah.
Well, like I
So-
said, the pieces of paper that I passed in,
Mhm.
one is Tyler Holden, I believe is Holden Farm. The other one has Trevor Holden, which is the Sunflower Shanty, I believe.
That's what it says.
Okay.
Two
So
different businesses, like, I just, I don't know what more you want us to give you. If we're giving you the IRS forms, our tax IDs, all of
Doesn't-
that, it's,
Doesn't this present the same issue that it did with Sandra Foy, and that whoever the applier is will need individual
It's a
liability
bit-
insurance
it's
as the
Holden
manager?
Farm.
on the insurance?
Yeah.
Well, if you look in the packet, right there, it's highlighted where it says Holden Farm has insurance, so.
okay. So the last time we were here, we all left with the understanding that Sandra Foy was going to be the applicant. She was going to get a proof of insurance, and you guys were going to submit a license with a different entity on it or left blank. And that's where we left off. Now you guys are coming to us with a different plan, and I'm not sure it was communicated clearly that you guys were changing the plan. And now we're here trying to understand
We had
that.
to wait a week for the town council to review everything, to have this meeting, so it's like, I think we did.
And I'm
We
letting you know.
submitted that over 2 weeks ago to the secretary. It was all there in the packet.
Okay, there's no need to be hostile.
I'm not being hostile, it's in the packet.
I understand that, and you have a bunch of individuals up here saying that they don't think it was communicated clearly, where we left off thinking one plan was going to happen. You guys have presented a new plan that did not communicate well to the board that that was what's going to happen. It was reviewed by town council. Town council didn't even seem to pick up on the plan that you guys have presented. So I'm not really sure how to go forward, seeing how it still appears that the entity will be gaining financial.
What do you mean by entity? The Sunflower Shanty won't be getting any proceeds from the operation, because it's Holden Farm that's pulling the permits.
So it was always Holden Sunflower Shanty.
Correct, and that is a different business than Holden Farm, just like we have Holden Farm Unlimited.
Okay.
I'm just explaining to you.
Yep,
you know,
nope, I
the
understand.
difference. And, I mean,
Did you see the Laura memo in there that was also in the packet?
I did see a Word document with some MGL sightings, yes.
Oh, yeah, I just wanna make
Yep.
sure.
Yep.
I just, because this town doesn't have anything set forth for licensing, unfortunately, these series of 1 days are our only way to proceed, so it's like, whether Sandra Foy, whether Holden Farm, whether it's Sunflower Shanty, whether any restaurant in town wanna come up, or say we want to have Lord Hobo do a pop-up at the farm and come in and present 30 days. I mean, what's the difference? I'm just saying, like, we passed in a new permit. We have our proof of insurance. Everything we need to obtain this permit.
So I think the difference is that, and I don't know if we all clearly understood that, Sandra Foy was a relative. The ABCC opinion came down to us and basically described why they don't like what you guys are trying to do right now, in my opinion, which is different family members and,
But
No,
family
understood.
members aren't part of the entities, any of them. So I don't like, I don't understand why, like,
So
not
is this your
understanding this.
is this your long-term goal, correct? This is a long-term goal to continue this business this way for
mean,
several
we
years
have
to
it-
come.
we're
We
just
have a-
worrying about,
oh,
like,
can I-
we're just worrying about right now how we can finish this
Season.
year off, this season.
Right.
So our farm can stay sustainable and the whole entire place we structured around agritourism and U-Pick for this fall can have the people coming through. Like,
Well,
that's
the current license you have gets you through mid-October. So that gets you through the
on one,
season.
on one day,
and we're
You just said to
banking-
get through the season,
and
right?
we're
3
banking.
days a week.
Okay, but that's new. You just said
No,
get
that
through the
was
season
the
and now.
original business plan or
And-
game
Right.
plan. It was.
But then additional information has come in to us, and we were
No,
down.
and-
we were
and-
with you guys. That's why we did it last year, and we want to work with you. But it's difficult when the goal gets set and then it's not met. You know, we puts us in a
There's a
position.
difference about being with us and like helping us come up with a solution for it. I mean, look at all the other towns that are still operating on these said 1 days. Worcester's doing it. I mean, I just don't understand. We've presented different businesses, different people, like not the same. And you guys, like, I just think we should be allowed to get this permit with what we have handed tonight.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
You know, we did ask him to bring in, to bring somebody else in and do all of that and bring in another entity, which I'm reading this and they did. Now, it's not, whatever her name was, your aunt or whatever it is, but they have all the documents required under a different entity to apply for these licenses. Unless I'm wrong. I'm looking at all of this stuff and I say, okay, it's a different entity. It's not whatever her name was, but that really doesn't make any difference. It's a different entity. And, you know, I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of disappointed in Ginny that we don't get more of a, you know, yes or no out of this thing.
Right. So did you ask me for a yes or no?
No, I didn't ask you.
No, from Ginny, because I'm the one.
No,
that
no,
interacts
but
with
Ginny has been reviewing this whole thing from what everybody's saying here.
you. Right.
And we don't have anything. We don't,
So it's not been my experience that town council is going to provide you with a review unless you say we want to review.
yeah,
Otherwise,
no,
she's just gonna.
I understand that, but
talk to me.
What we asked for,
Yep.
and tell me if I'm wrong, what we asked for is what they presented. We asked for the insurance, we asked for a different entity, we asked for the tips, we asked for all of this stuff, and here it is. Finally, and I'm gonna say to both of you, finally.
But Ray, you're missing the biggest part, which is the entities cannot share profits, and I don't think it's very clear that the current entity is not going to be sharing the profit with the new entity that's being proposed.
Well, that's up to the IRS.
Well, no, it's up to the licensing authority. And
So
that's us.
Holden Sunflower Shanty, Trevor Holden was not the applicant on the previous licenses, correct?
Correct. It was Caitlin Cubitt.
So that's different. From what my interpretation of the law is that if you put it under a different entity that doesn't receive compensation or whatever from that, then that's how you do it. You know,
I hear you, and I would say that the ABCC does not share that opinion, and now it's up to the board to say, are we going to follow the advice given by our council and the ABCC, or are we going to go against that?
so and I'll go back to that. What was the advice of our council based on what was submitted tonight?
So one, I got to be honest. I don't think anybody was clear that that's what those two documents were trying to portray.
What two documents?
The two IRS documents.
The EIN number, yeah,
Number.
okay.
Right. We also got that third document that's just a Word document of random cut and paste that doesn't say what it is on
Yep.
it. We don't know what we're supposed to do with that. So her recommendation was that, you've got Tyler Holden and Trevor Holden, both of Holden Farms, both of Sunflower Shanty, maybe not on that IRS document, but that she thought that it was not advisable and that it would be against what the ABCC had told us. Now, if you want me to go back to her with, let's talk about EIN numbers, we can certainly do that, but I honestly don't think that was clear, that was the new plan.
Yes.
So, I, for one, have nothing to do with the Sunflower Shanty, so just let's clear that up.
So
right
is
now.
the Sunflower Shanty operate on Holden Farms?
Operates on Holden Farm, yes, it does.
Okay.
Okay.
But
And but it's run by your brother.
it's two separate businesses.
Okay. Yeah, I can see it on here now. Yeah.
And it's,
Evan, you could see it on there the whole time when it was passed in. We brought it in like,
Again,
So- so hold on,
We're not
hold
going to
on.
get
Can I
hostile,
speak?
please.
I'm not getting hostile. This,
so when I walked in, I had spoke with the secretary. At the time, I think it was Cindy and I forgot
Amber.
Amber. Thank you. Amber, we're both there. I explained, like, gave a rundown on the documents I brought in. I wanted to show. And then I did drop off that one piece of paper. When I got back to the farm, I thought about it. I was like, oh, I should bring the whole packet that piece of paper came out of.
Yep.
So it isn't like a cut and paste document. It's an actual packet that we had printed off, and it's just some documentation. Like I said, I don't know. It was just food for thought. I mean, so I did sort of explain what all the paperwork was. I don't have communication with really anyone, you know what I mean, other than me giving a call or coming down to the municipal, or here, to the municipal center to see someone. So I apologize that didn't get crossed, but I also just relied on another person to sort of pass on that message.
Right.
And then that day later on is when we received the email, I believe, from Cindy, that said that yourself and council wanted to review it, or wanted her to review it. Sorry. So that's all sort of where I was at.
Okay. Understood.
So I think that if you have two separate entities with two different tax certificates, that may provide the separation that you need in order to issue. It's whether or not the board feels comfortable with that separation and what that looks like moving forward.
Yeah, Madam Chair.
Yep.
You know, and I'm comfortable with that. There's 6 dates right now. It says 8 on here, but there's only 6 left.
I actually had sent in, I think we had emailed Cindy because of that. In the email, it said like there was a few dates that were gonna be passed on that application I had sent in.
Okay, so the 6.
So I sent in a new one this morning to fix that, so then it was 8. I'm
Here's the
sorry.
thing, it's not in front of us, so.
Right, all right.
So there's 6 dates.
Yep.
You know, I'm comfortable giving them the 6 dates. But I do wanna say this. Next year, we're not doing this.
So that's the
We're
thing.
not doing it, because you gotta find a way to, and you and I have talked about this before.
No, correct. And
So you have to find a way over the next 6 months to be able to apply for a license for your piece of property. However that's done, it's not temporary. And I'll be fine with that. But next year, if you come back and you say you want a 30-day license, I'll tell you right now, I'll vote no. I'll tell you right now, I will vote no, because we can't keep going through this. We need a solution to the problem.
Ray, what's the difference between this year and next year?
What do you
Why
mean?
is it okay to do it this year but not next
To
year?
just finish out their season, that's all, it's all it is, it's all I'm saying, is finish out their season, and then it's done.
But their
And
license extends through October. They just want to expand their season, but they get through the season with the license they have now. So what's the difference between this year and next year? And what's gonna stop
Because
another farm from
this
saying,
year, I'm comfortable with the fact that the information that they turned in is what we had asked for. That's the only reason, Colleen. If they turned in information that didn't meet our recommendations, which is what we asked, then I'd be voting no right now. But they filled in everything, and you're talking about 6 dates, and that's it. That's it.
right, and I think 6 dates can set a precedent where it really messes the board up next year, because you did it the year before, you're doing it this year, and doing it again after getting the recommendation from the ABCC, I feel like puts the board at a disadvantage for years going
Well,
forward, or a
and-
disadvantage when other farms come forward and say, hey, I wanna do this too.
And I know I'm just one member. I know I'm just one member saying, don't come before us next year, because it's not gonna happen. But, you know, it might be the view of other people. I don't know. Here's the thing, and I'm sorry, Andy. Here's the thing. The board needs to take a vote. And we vote in favor or we vote no. And then it either goes 6 days or it goes away. Simple as that.
If we followed up with Ginny and asked her for an opinion on this, how long would that response take to come back?
I could literally have it tomorrow.
Okay.
I don't think we weren't having the conversation in the way that,
It was intended.
yeah.
Okay, so I was just trying to figure that out, because realistically, I think we could, if we had to, kick it to next week. They would lose the other 2 dates of August 26th and 27th. But,
They already have the 27th on the current license that they
okay,
have.
but it would at least allow them to keep the 4 September dates potentially once we have advice from council.
I honestly think council's advice is gonna be where the board's comfort level is, right? You have 2 separate tax certificates. I think that the board can go either way. I think council's suggestion is always gonna be to err on the side of caution. And probably to not approve. But, you know, is the board comfortable with the separation that Tyler and Trevor are giving you with the 2 separate tax certificates? And if the answer is yes, then, you know, I don't know that that's, I don't think, given my quite extensive conversations, that it would be, you know, a no, a solid no. Because there's just no case law.
So I'm not comfortable right now, but I'm trying to get comfortable with what's been presented. Here's one of the things that makes me comfortable, you know, uncomfortable a little bit. You guys came with Sandra Foy, with a different, you know, with an attorney that came with a document that said, hey, you know, these are 2 different businesses. They're effectively not going to share revenue. That made me feel a little bit more comfortable. But now we have a different applicant, right? It's still a distinct business, but like I can open multiple businesses myself. Like I can, well, you know, you did it, right? You go online and you say, I'm starting a new business and I need an EIN number, and there it is. Like,
No, it's not that simple. I mean, we have
I've done
attorneys that set up our LLC.
I'm just saying
LLCs,
to produce an EIN number is trivial. So maybe you guys can just walk me through, because to me, what it looks
So
like.
hold
So
on.
hang on, just
Oh,
one
well,
second.
I was just gonna do that. I'm
Just
sorry.
1 second. So to me, what it looks like is you've got multiple family members that are running a farm operation, and you've got 2 businesses that are distinct businesses. That's what you're saying, but it seems to me like that all goes into the farm. And I don't know how that works.
That's wrong.
But
I mean,
so
making
that's
sure-
what I'm asking for
Yeah.
clarification on, because for me to be comfortable with this idea,
Yeah.
I need to understand why these are really different businesses and how that separation works in practice, kind of. Because Ray, I kind of agree with what you're saying in the sense that we asked them to do X, Y, and Z, and they did that. But I still don't feel comfortable with, and I'm sorry for that, but that's where I'm at. I don't
Yeah, no,
feel
that's
comfortable that these two businesses aren't at the end of the day all just part of the farm. And that's that's what the ABCC is telling us is the problem, is that you've got, because anybody can sort of start and name a business, but at the end of the day, I guess I'd feel more comfortable if I could understand why one business is substantially different than the other. To just help me get more comfortable with the idea that these are two separate businesses that are going to use this revenue differently as two distinct businesses versus it just all being the farm. I guess that's kind of where I'm at, because we've got two brothers with, and Ray, I was kind of thinking what you were, which is let's just get them through the end of the season. But I don't like the idea that if we have a certain rationale right now, that it's not going to hold for next year. That's problematic for me. Because look, at the end of the day, I feel like what you guys really need to do is seek some zoning changes to be able to do this by right. And that's the right way to do it.
That's a double-edged sword, though, for this town, too, though.
It is. But
because
what we're doing right now, it's a double-edged sword, too, because
Right.
any other farm in Grafton that's got some animals that want to open up an outdoor bar with music, you're shaking your head, but we're saying that this is okay when we're permitting that. And I don't know if I'm okay with that in all different parts of Grafton, because there's unpredictable.
But there's certain criterias you have to meet in order to do certain things on the, and that's for another conversation, but, I mean.
You guys are trying to use an event license, which
Hold on.
is
Can we
we're
can we
going to
go
have a
back to your
fundraiser. You're trying to use
question?
that for changing the farm's business to a seasonal outdoor bar with music. That's what is at the heart of this. It's not the right mechanism for it.
I am using the beer garden as an accessory to my agricultural operation, and that helps bring people in, to bring more awareness, to bring more sustainability to my farm, also to teach people about where they're getting their food from, letting people get hands-on with their food, letting them get out into nature, letting them just be totally around agriculture. So it's like,
Everyone agrees with that, though. No one's disagreeing with that.
well, how many other farms are really going to come in, and how many other farms are really going to come in here and try to get a one day
I
doing
disagree
what we're
with that.
doing?
Are you telling us that the purpose of the shanty is to help
Bring people
further
in.
agricultural knowledge? That people are going there to learn about
110%.
farms?
110%.
I disagree with that.
Hold on, to clarify your situation at hand, the one that you asked at first.
Yeah.
I didn't know exactly how much information I had to provide to you guys to show that they are two different businesses. I've made it clear to a couple of people now that Holden Farm and Holden Sunflower Shanty are two separate businesses. I mean, if you want a bank account, so I guess I can give you our bank accounts. We can
Like proper proof of
show you like all our documentation. I was just figuring like an EIN number would show the clarification of separate entities being separate businesses.
I can see the separate businesses, but at the end of the day, it's
But wouldn't a bank account show you sort of how profits
it's
are
about the
going?
revenue sharing. So because look how you just described it is that it's all one business. That I mean, you just described it as a combined.
No, Holden Farm grows vegetables.
Right, we're a
That's
farm.
what we do. We are a farm in the town of Grafton
Yeah.
that we grow vegetables. We grow at Peranians. We grow at Nolans. We're helping families keep area in Chapter 61A.
Right, that new
Like those
project
cool
that-
new high-rise panels.
That's
Been
gonna be
working with
us.
them the whole entire time. I'm doing the 2 acres on the other side for the mixed use. Those animals that are going to be growing up there are then going to be brought back to the farm and used at the food trailer. So it's like, I don't. I mean, if you want to, I'll give you a ride around all the places we're going and show you the difference between my businesses. I would love to. Might be easier to understand, honestly.
So, but at the end of the day, it's the shared income that can't happen.
But at the end of the day, you guys asked us to do something and we're doing it and we're still not getting.
But the shared
permits.
income, by your own attorney's admission, was that if you live even in the same household, you guys can't.
We don't live in the same
I'm not
household.
saying, no one's letting me finish. I'm not saying you do, but that's where it is. It's difficult to create that separation when it looks so together. And that's what the board's trying to do, is create that separation. And you're not really hearing us work out that with you. You know what I mean? We're trying to understand the separation. Clearly the EIN number didn't land the way you had intended. You're explaining that to us now. We're receiving it. But that's not how our council reviewed it when it was turned in. I understand you turned it.
explain it.
She had
I
2 weeks
hear
to look at it.
But it wasn't landing in the way you intended, and that's what we're trying to explain to you. We want to help you. And I was just there this weekend, and I experienced exactly what you were saying. You were grabbing kids, showing them goats. You were doing the things that you're trying to say you're doing. I'm not disregarding that. What you guys have is a great thing. But if you want to do this long term, I don't see it working past 30 days. And I don't see why giving you 5 more days this year is any different when we already just told you next year you're only getting 30.
It's the amount of people that come when the beer is there. Like, I don't understand what you don't get. Like, if I didn't have to have it there and my produce would bring all those people, it's people that go there from Friday night to
hear you.
Sunday, when the beer garden is open, when the families are there out and about, and then they go over to the farm stand and they're like, oh wow, now they're back Monday through Thursday buying their produce, then back on the weekends. It's
I
like,
hear you, but if next year you're only getting 30, what's the difference if you only get 30 this year or
we're
next
worrying
year?
about this year only.
But it's not just this year, because last year we only worried about last year, and now we're here.
But that was just somebody totally different. That was like
hold on,
partners
hold
of
on.
ours. Like,
And then I back, if you wanna go back that far, we did have a meeting to try and figure out a long-term solution, because we did hear Ray last year say he thinks that we should have something more structured than the one-day beer and wine permits.
Yep.
So we did try and go down that avenue.
Right, and
Now-
new
and now-
information keeps coming in.
Absolutely, and
so why can't the board, seeing how you guys have been working with us, we've been trying to work with you guys, you see all our sides in that, why can't we just get this, what we've presented to you today? That's what I don't get. You guys are the licensing authority.
Right, and
It's not setting good precedent for everybody else in town, I feel.
It is though. If we grant you a license, that sets precedent. And I think you're kind of blurring those lines on what the farm produces, offering you the exemption, if I'm understanding it properly. I understand that, your reasoning behind it, but I don't think that you can argue that, because the farm produces vegetables for purchase, that entitles, the beer and wine sales, that one drives the other. Now you could, I think with the food argument, if you are sourcing your own meat and
I
food
raise
and
my
whatnot
own
that goes
birds
into
and
the,
turkeys.
I think you have an argument there. There's
And
your
that's why we're
exemption
doing
because
everything we're doing up there is because last year we were allowed to do the food trailer. And I raise and I grow those birds. The only reason that's happening on that property, only reason. So then now we have that food trailer, another accommodation to that is, beer, beverages.
But
Why
nothing
people
you're
are
doing
there.
on the farm entitles you to.
What's
and
that?
Nothing you're doing on the farm directly entitles you to beer and wine sales via an exemption the way
No,
you
it's
would
my
for food.
extensive agricultural operation that I have that does at the end of the day.
but what this license was intended to do was to bring, in the fall, having apple harvests over the couple weekends in the fall or things like that. What it was not driven to do was to create a beer garden for a extended period of time past 30 days.
Okay. And we're in the fall season,
And your license extends to the middle of October.
one day.
Well, but it's because you chose
But
to take some
you
off
pick
to add other
pumpkins,
dates in
my
the
corn
summer.
maze is opening up. I have a whole field of sunflowers that would have gone through, but were restricted to Saturdays. I don't like.
No, we're not restricting. You picked the 30 days you wanted, and we've amended it 3
Yes,
times
but
for you guys.
before all of that happened,
Nope,
and
but
before
don't
the
say
thing
we
was brought in
restricted
here
you.
and someone reported it, you told us in the winter that operate off of one-day permits. So we didn't know as much as you guys didn't know either.
Right.
So why can't we all work together, give our operation the more to get into the harvest season, which we are getting into the thick of, you know,
Can you bear with me?
Madam
for a
Chair?
Yep, hold on,
don't
we're
know
gonna have
what
Andy
it
go
is
in
to
there.
Oh, okay, I'm
farm
sorry.
and
Go for it,
Alright.
Andy.
So I apologize. I wrote down notes because I wanted to make sure that I get my thoughts clear here. Okay, but I want to go through a recap of the events as I've seen them since joining the board, just so we're all on the same page. Okay, we began this season listening to complaints from your neighbors. On the May 31st meeting, the board issued a 1-year entertainment license and agreed to reconvene with Sunflower Shanty in 6 weeks to evaluate the new sound dampening devices that you guys had suggested. The board reconvened on July 19th, just over 8 weeks later, for 2 purposes: review the sound mitigation for the entertainment license and for 30 additional one-day beer and wine licenses. Okay? As far as the entertainment discussion, at that point, sound blankets had been attached to an Easy Up tent the weekend preceding. That would be Friday, July 15th, Saturday, July 16th, the Tuesday Select Board meeting on the 19th. So it gave neighbors and the board very little time to evaluate the effectiveness. Shanty advised us at that meeting that they would prefer to pivot to a tent and sound blankets rather than a hard structure based on both construction costs and time, and not wanting a permanent structure to obscure any of their views. While the Shanty has done some of what was promised in sound mitigation, and Trevor has indicated that he's walked around the property and didn't find sound to be excessive, it's become clear that you've done no additional outreach with any of the abutters. The board had previously reminded you that it was the responsibility of the entity to be a good neighbor as well, and proactively reach out to neighbors and try and address any of those complaints on your own. With the beer and wine license discussion that night, you had your lawyer and Ms. Foy in attendance. The application didn't contain proof of liability insurance for Ms. Foy, and we were advised that you could have that for us the following day. We scheduled a special meeting on July 26th that hadn't been previously scheduled, and ended up having to remove you from the agenda because the info wasn't provided then. At this point, personally, I don't know how we could grant any additional licenses. It seems like the ones we've granted in the past maybe shouldn't have because of the way the zoning laws are written, but we did so in an effort to be business friendly and with the hopes that the Sunflower Shanty and Holden Farms would behave in an equitable fashion and come to a resolution with the neighbors on their own, one that allowed the business to continue. Instead, the Shanty has come before the board a couple times and moved the goal line. Social posts by Tyler Holden and All Things Grafton don't come across to me as somebody who's trying to be reasonable or work with the board and the town. On July 26th, you posted question of the day: who exactly is the town afraid of getting sued by in regards to Holden Sunflower Shanty asking for a friend? July 28th, if you're sick of all the drama, come on over, you pick some flowers, and they make you smile. July 30th, just getting going, come be a part of Grafton's loudest farm. At this point, I think the board is lucky that other businesses in town haven't chosen to press the issue, as they may rightfully feel that their path to licensing was far more rigorous than the path that the Sunflower Shanty was granted. That's it.
Okay.
just,
No, hold on.
I don't see a lot of these comments and actions as somebody who is trying to work with their neighbors to resolve the outstanding issue. Even if we give you all the permits for these things and everything's on the up and up. Excuse me.
Gramp, can you get, like,
Even
this
even
is,
even if all this, you walked away with permanent access to do both beer and wine, the problem that you have with your butters doesn't go away until you guys come to some sort of an agreement.
Will
right?
it ever go away?
It will never go away.
I mean, obviously,
no,
we
it
would
will-
expect
no,
them-
it will.
we would
It
expect
will.
them, your neighbors and
Let's
butters, to be
let's
reasonable
go
as well.
Sell the place and be done with it.
Well, that's what we'll do, we'll sell it.
Yes,
So,
Okay,
they
great.
put houses
get
in
ready
there.
for
All right,
your
please
green
stop.
light to
we
Hold
would-
on, hold on.
we would-
I'm gonna let a board member speak.
You'll all be nice and happy with that.
So don't.
I'm gonna let a board
just-
member
you know
speak
what?
now.
Please just calm down, okay? Just calm down. In the first place, Andy, you went through the chronology of all that, of all the stuff that went on and everything like that. Everybody sitting here knows that I don't give a crap about social media and what stupid things people write on it. And I don't think it should come before this board, because it's not an official social media site of the town of Grafton. That's that. On another note, I agree with Matt. Matt said that what you guys are trying to do is run a business on a temporary license, something that we issue to the Lions Club for a one-day beer and wine license, or I was gonna say Little League, but probably not the Little League. So I agree with Matt on that. And I'm gonna go back to what I said before, is, in my opinion, next year is not gonna happen. But this board, not all of us, this board granted 2 30-day licenses last year. And then at the beginning of this year, we granted another 30-day license. And then we found out about the issue with ABCC. And guess what? It's August 23rd. They still have a license. And they're asking for 6 more days. And I'm gonna go back to what I said before. Let's just approve the 6 more days, and let's just get this over with and be done with it. And if you guys wanna sell your farm, which I know you don't, you have every right in the world to do that. No doubt about it. But we granted 2 30-day licenses last year, and another 30-day license this year, and another 30-day license this year, and now they're asking for 6 more days. And I just think we should just give it to them and get this over with.
I hear what you're saying, but you're missing a part where we issue. So last year was very different, right? Like they said, they had a different business partner in there. They had a
No, last year, I'm sorry, Colleen, last year wasn't any different. It didn't matter who brought that license before us. We granted 2 30-day licenses to an entity that operated on Holden Farm.
Right.
And what you see in front of you with all of this information that they brought is an entity that's going to operate on Holden Farm. It's no different.
Well, it is different because last year when we did all of this, there were 0 complaints.
Right.
And that whether there were complaints that we didn't hear, the point is we got no complaints, so we thought everything was fine and dandy. That was when you had the meeting over the winter. We still wanted a more permanent solution, not knowing about any complaints. And then in April is when we initially posted the first 30-day license. So they've had this license since April. It will continue through October. And
Aren't we here on the alcohol or
We are.
Monday?
No, we're
But
talking about
How
alcohol.
come everything gets brought up, like your comment?
Because I
In
don't.
my social media posts or whatever, I made maybe 4 out of how many hundreds that have been surfacing up.
We don't
This
care.
board
we don't
letting this get
care
stretched so
about-
far.
I
We
would
don't
like
care
to
about
finish what I was
social media
saying.
posts.
I
brought it
would
up.
like to finish what I was saying.
A board member.
And that is last year was different than this year. We've issued a 30-day license. We've modified it 3 times for you. We've been told by the ABCC we cannot issue it based off of the information we have, and there's not much we can do. You know what I mean? And certain members feel like we can, certain members feel like we can't. And I gotta be honest, you guys don't feel like you're helping your cause a lot of the times when you do some of the things you do.
Madam Chair,
Social media post?
Madam Chair.
Yep.
I move that we grant one-day beer and wine license to Holden Farm for the 26th, the 27th of August, the 4th, 11th, and 18th, and 25th of September.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second. I will say they already have a license for the 27th.
Oh, why is it on this list then? You want me to, I'll change it to just
I
the
don't know.
26th.
I mean, they already, on their current 30-day license, they are licensed for the 27th.
So the 26th of August, the 4th, 11th, 18th, and 25th of September.
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Go for it. All right, let's get Matt. and
Go
then
ahead,
we'll back. Okay.
I just want to respond. The reason I brought those up is because I don't feel, on the whole, that throughout this entire situation, those are the actions of somebody who is trying to work with somebody. They seem to be the actions of somebody who's trying to instigate people further, your neighbors, your butters, whoever. But it seems to be that you're trying to cause a confrontation or something of the like. Not that you're taking responsibility for action, not that you're doing what the board asked you to do and try and squash this beef that you have with the people who are living in your area. That's why I bring it up. And
I,
that may not be the reality, but that's the way I perceive it.
and I'm sorry, and I hope you know, me sitting here looking you in the face right now, my intention with all my neighbors, anyone that lives around there, anyone in this community, anyone that comes to my place, is to treat them like their family. I help a lot of people out. I have a good soul, and I'm sorry there's been this big nasty picture painted of all of us, and you know, I one family across the way from my farm, and then you look at all the other neighbors, all the other good comments, and it really is upsetting that, you know, what has gone on social media and everyone's speaking for us. So yes, I did at a point get upset and start throwing some things out there. I'm at my wit's end. You know, this farm season's hard. I had one thing that was working to bring new customers in that have never come here, you know, to my farm before, and I thought I had a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's all gotten squashed. So yes, it's very emotional for me. It, you know, weighs heavily on my family, my brother's family, the future of my farm, and I guess I put a little bit too much love into what I do, but I'm sorry. It's a tough profession to be in, you know.
I hope that you hear us, that we sincerely do support you guys and wish to do as much for you as we possibly can that is within this board's power.
And
Because
I
I'm being
appreciate that.
dead honest with you. You know, like there are legal issues that we're all trying to navigate right now, but we are that was part of the point of me reading that was to illustrate that the board is really trying to work with you guys on this and get you where you need to be. And per I think Mr. Offen's suggestion, you know, there are other forms of outreach that you can do. Maybe start talking to the planning board. We could, you know, I believe they've had some initial discussions about maybe some agro-tourism zoning. You know, maybe that's something that we could explore. I know it was referenced before that we discussed more of a agro-tourism beer and wine license at the beginning of the season, and that was kind of problematic, and we ended up, you know, not really revisiting that. But those are initiatives I think that you guys are probably going to have to take up on your own and really spearhead and work with town government on. It's not necessarily something that the board can guide you through the whole way.
Mhm.
Thank you.
So I don't feel totally comfortable with the situation that you guys have presented. At the end of the day, it is a few days. I want to be super clear that I'm definitely not doing it. I'm in Ray's camp with I'm not doing this next year. So I know based on previous experience that it's very likely we're going to have this conversation at some point next year, and I'm telling you that I will not be moved in any direction other than no for anything more than 30 days. The other thing that's come to light is that you guys don't have aren't zoned for the music permit either, so that's going to be an issue, and I'm again not looking to make an exception for that next year. You know, you with your current business have a right to 30 days of wine and beer licenses, and that's it. You need to work with the town on your own initiative. It's not our responsibility to try to craft our permitting process or change our zoning or our regulations or anything to try to meet a business plan that we've had pretty limited visibility of. Like, what you're saying makes sense. I think it would have helped this board a lot at the beginning of the summer or late spring to understand the direction of the farm was going in and, you know, what the business plan was going to be. I don't know if it would have changed any of the discussions. Ultimately, it might have, but here we are. So for me, I'm not completely comfortable, but it's a few days, and I guess I'm kind of with Ray. I'd like to support the business. I'd like you guys to get through the fall, but I'm definitely not on board for this kind of discussion next year at all. I'm just I'm a definite no, and there's gonna be no level of discussion and pressure and social media and all that stuff. You guys have 2 town meetings, realistically 1, but plenty of time to plan, and you have the whole town behind you. The whole town. So if you go to town meeting and you've got, something that's reasonable that has the planning board, ZBA, whoever you need to talk to get that zoning in place, or whatever, agritourism, farm operation, whatever you want to do, that is not a 1-day, like, beer and wine license. That's just the wrong mechanism for this, and it's not up to Grafton to try to figure out a way to change our regulations to meet. That's you guys working with whatever professionals you want to hire to come up with that business plan, and then working with the town. I know the planning board would be totally on board with having those discussions and try to figure out, but it's a much wider discussion. It's not about your business. That's about zoning in the town of Grafton, and the discussion really needs to be, how does this impact Grafton as a whole, not just your business? So, as we talk about zoning changes, it's town-wide. It's not, we're looking at this one particular use case. It's, how does this impact the whole town? So, I'm gonna support the motion, but just give you guys a real clear signal that I won't do this next year.
And I just wanted to say that for me, I'm with Matt and Ray that you get 30 days. Only I don't see how approving a license for just a couple more days this year is helpful at all for the board next year. In fact, I think it opens up a can of worms that makes it more difficult next year to give that emphatic no that you guys are saying now. And for me, that's why I can't support this additional license for this year. You guys have dates that'll bring you through to October. You're not shut down immediately at all. But I don't think just a couple days for what it will create is good for the board or for the town. I know it's great for you guys, and what you guys are doing up there is wonderful, but I don't think it's being done properly, and I think this just extends that.
We're in a tough spot, because I feel the same. I don't that yes, we're setting precedent and potentially throwing good permits at bad permits, but at the same time, in for a penny, in for a pound. Like we've already done it. We're talking about 5 dates. I hate to sound crass or anything, but I feel a bit beaten down talking about this, and I'm just kind of at the end of my road with it, and would just as soon approve and move on. I think it's been made clear that we need an institutional change here. So you guys have to work with, start with planning, reach out, find out who else you have to talk to, and start moving forward so you can get something on town meeting and make this a sustainable business.
Do you guys have any reference and points to those people instead of just calling the number and then not getting a call back? I don't know, people maybe someone I could reach out to, if I were to reach
Town
out to
planner.
you or
The town planner, Christopher.
Chris.
Chris McGoldrick.
McGoldrick.
Alrighty. Alright. Perfect.
Alright, so I have a motion and a second on the table. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Declare the motion carried. Okay, so you guys have those additional 5 dates.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next on the agenda is the Grafton Upton Railroad. Ray, do you want to tee that off because you asked to put it on there?
Yeah, so this goes back to the town of Wakefield that actually got the Federal Railroad Administration to stop blowing the horns at railroad crossings. It was a little different because they didn't have actual gates or lights or anything like that, and they got a grant, $1.25 million grant to fund that. And once they got that, then the Federal Railroad Association, or whatever they are, administration, deleted tooting the horns. So we don't, you know, in our situation here, we don't have to get a grant to do railroad crossings or stop streets or lights they're all there. All we have to do, and Evan, you tell me if I'm wrong, and again, this is not a quick process. It's not fast at all. We have to get the Federal Railroad Administration to tell us or you know, grant us the fact that don't have to blow the horns in the North Grafton, East Street, North Main, Waterville anymore. So,
Because they're protected.
because
Like the
the
travel lanes.
gates, because the gates come down, the lights are on, no one can get through. It's not, and they're all, you know, they're all brand new, really. They're only a couple of years old. So, this has to go through our congressional delegation, and Evan may have more information on this, but and then we have to get a ruling from the FRA, and then they can stop blowing the horns down there. Now, when I said it's not a fast process, this could be 2 years to get all of this through. You know, going through our congressional people and everything and trying to get that, you know. And one other thing on the railroad down there is, if you've been down there, if you've driven up Waterville from St. Mary's Church, the last house on the right has extensive gardens and all kinds of, you know, bushes and shrubs and everything like that. And the woman who owns that planted trees along on what she thought her property line was. And the railroad came in and moved them. Just ripped them out. Didn't give her new plants, didn't give her anything, just ripped out the stuff because I guess it was on or encroaching on their piece of property. She relocated, or she moved all of that stuff, and she planted all new plants, and this is kind of a complaint of mine. And now, in the past 2 weeks, the railroad sent out, you know, Joe Machete and chopped the crap out of her plants that were on her property. And these guys make friends wherever they go. I don't understand why they don't call her and say, hey, you got to trim your plants back, it's over the line, whatever it is. I don't even know why they did it. I know why they did it in the front, because their sign, you couldn't see their sign. That's why they did it. But the plants were on her land, and they just came in and chopped the crap out of them. Anyway, I wanted to bring that up because I've talked to her about it, and not about this one, but about the last time. So we just need to get a process, and I mean, I'll work with Evan or Will or whoever in the congressional people, and because I love talking to them, and get this thing off of square one. That's what I want to do. So, Evan, do you have any more information on or anything?
Yeah, so I went back and watched all of the meetings where this was initially proposed, the quiet zone, to better understand, one, the history of it, and two, all of the different steps. And we do have some pretty good information available. We have a study done by PAR with different changes to the intersection that would be required in order to meet that quiet zone standard. And the final decision seemed to revolve around this, what they called our alternative C, which is widening the road to get a median and making East Street one way from the intersection to Prospect. So they have that traffic study that advises that. I don't know. What I don't know is that if we apply to the FRA without submitting that we're going to make those improvements or changes, that they'll grant that quiet zone because of the layout of the intersection. I did read the entire traffic study, which seemed to give us that same consensus. So I think that if the board is interested in pursuing the quiet zone, we need to seriously consider what they're calling alternative C, which the drawback to that obviously is that if you make East Street one way, now all the other side streets are impacted. And just as an aside, one of the other things they talk about quite frequently in the presentation is signal coordination and preemption, they call it, so that when a fire truck or something comes up to it, changes the light so that they can get through. And so I did talk to Paul Canoyer today. That's part of the project we talked about last time.
Last time, yeah.
That's all included in there. So you do get some traffic improvement with the coordination of lights. But I don't see anything in here, Ray, that lets us have any faith that we would get a quiet zone without that one way.
So
Yeah,
which way would it be?
it would be from,
Away from the intersection, because what they're trying to do is stop you from
So
pulling
we
it up.
would,
you wouldn't be able to turn down East Street
So
from North
people-
Main.
No, I think it's the opposite.
so you'd have
you-
to
you-
route
you-
traffic that was headed from
Yes.
East Street,
Prospect.
coming down East Street towards,
Prospect to
40
Prentice, down to,
Practice.
Oh, wait, I can show you.
Waterville.
I'm in the
Right.
meeting.
Out in front of
Hold on, let me put it on the screen. I'm over here whispering to tell William how to find it, but I'm in the exact same meeting that he's in. Can you allow me to share, buddy?
Listen, a lot of hostility there.
I'm not hostile.
So you could get
Oh,
into
great
East
there.
Street from the main street, but not the other way.
Yes, that's my understanding.
Okay.
Let me.
Should be good now.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
So if you see, it's coming from Route 140.
Yeah.
And it gives you this. Their original design was this, so that you have the turn lane. They would remove this section of road surface and make this one way, and you would head out East Street this way. So it's away from the intersection. So basically what you're doing is you're being able to hold traffic here and here, right, in your turn lane while the crossing is closed, and then being able to exit the intersection through. This is the proposal that PAR had come up with and Grafton Upton Railroad to, well, I actually think it's, if I remember correctly, this is Grafton Upton Railroad's design and PAR peer reviewed it, is maybe an more accurate way to put that. But that's what they had come up with.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So I think what we should do is get a hold of, Congressman McGovern, his office or whoever, and get them in a dialogue with the FRA to get that going. Because like I said, this is not quick. This is gonna take a long time. And really, I'd like to get the, why do we have to make East Street with the arms that come down and everything's blocked off? Why do we have to make it one way? And maybe they can, Congressman McGovern's office can get the FRA on the phone, on a conference call or whatever, and tell us what the process is.
Yep.
And how we have to move this forward. So that's really what I wanna do.
Was the one-way requirement well explained in the meeting? That, the fact that that was the only option if you were going for this?
Yes, to a degree.
Okay.
I
Explained by Grafton and Upton Railroad.
Right.
at the outreach meeting, and there was, I think there, FRA had input into this. So I'd have to go back and find out what that. Well, I don't think I saw it in the meeting itself. I watched it all at double speed, just to be clear. I don't have time to watch 5 hours of meetings, but but I mean, we could certainly. I mean, I'm sure that people involved at the time have that answer. I just don't have it at the tip of my tongue.
So Ray, I just feel like this is one of those winners and losers situation,
Well, yeah,
right?
it is.
But here's I think the good thing about it is that the winners and losers, for the most part, they're all in the same part of Grafton,
Yeah,
right? So it's a community of people that are going to benefit from the quiet zone if that's the direction we decide to go. But the implication of that is that the traffic gets rerouted, which also impacts them.
Right.
So it feels to me like if we were to, as a board, going to move forward with this initiative, we need to get that community together. Didn't that already happen?
They had a community outreach.
Yeah, and you can watch it. We have the recording.
So to me, I feel like I need to go and watch the video and see what happened, because I'm not sure I necessarily want to go through this all again.
Colleen
just
came
have
up
the
with a
same
great
kinda
document
outcome.
that shows you where every meeting is, and they link right over.
With timestamps and when it
Of
starts.
course.
It was really mint because it saved me a ton of time. I really appreciate it.
So one of the biggest issue down there is that their rail yard is right across the street, right from,
Right.
and every time they go on a different stub track, they back up, they gotta blow their horns, even though they only come out into the intersection that much, the things come down, and then they go back, and then they come back, and then and in a matter of an hour, they could blow the horn 40 times.
Yep.
And that, if it was just a crossing like at Tracy Inn Drive, and that doesn't even have arms. Blow the horn and they're gone.
Right.
But they keep coming back and
Yeah,
forth,
because
back and forth.
someone had raised the issue with me of, well, you're gonna fix that, but then they blow the horn when they cross Ray Street, which is
Yes.
right down from there.
Yeah.
But I think that they're probably crossing Ray Street a lot less frequently because they're not shunting cars when they're putting their train together. I mean, that's what they're doing. They're shunting cars to put the train together in the right order so that they can then go drop their cars off.
And in that rail operation, that never goes as far as Ray Street.
I'm not saying never.
No, oh, you mean that operation? No, I mean I've watched it. It only goes down like one car or half a car.
Well, it depends on how many cars they have in their
Right.
yard and how long the train is to put.
I've never seen it so my daughter goes to Dance It Up, so I'm there all the time.
Yep.
I've only ever seen the train going
That-
through Ray Street.
Right, but that's
It's never been that backup
I
operation.
think we're making the same point. What
Yeah.
I'm saying is that there's concern about Ray Street, but Ray Street is probably blow the horn, keep going.
Right.
Yeah.
Then they come back hours later, blow the horn, come through.
Yeah.
Unless Washington Mills
There-
is getting a rail car into the back of their property.
Okay.
So that's when
Yeah.
it happens, but that's rare.
Does it make sense to get McGovern and go down this whole process if we're not prepared to make East Street a one-way? Is
Well,
that
I
something that needs to be
think
determined
that, I mean,
first?
that is, how old is that drawing?
That one was from 2018, but the outreach reading was the end of 2019.
I mean, I think that was proposed by Grafton and Upton Railroad. I think we need to propose something and say, okay, why does it have to be, why does it have to be one way? Why does it have to, do this? And I really want to get Congressman McGovern's office involved, because they're the ones that have the connection to the railroad administration, not us. They're not gonna listen to us.
Is there also a distinction there? Like, because I don't remember offhand. If we, went with option C there and made it the quiet zone, are we talking about going from full horns to no horns when we only need to be going full horns to some horns? Like, is there middle ground that we could reach with the FRA
They
on
did that already, where they went from like a lot of horns to reduced horns.
They
and
went
even
from-
reduced horns is still
Right.
Still
So
an issue.
that was one thing that Mike Milanowski does make a distinction. So they were doing 8 blasts, right? 4 at the first crossing, 4 at East Street, and they petitioned and got it reduced to that's treated as one crossing, and it's just 4 blasts when
Yep.
you're there. So I mean 4 train blasts is still
Yeah, it's enough.
pretty loud, but they did make that concession, and I don't know that there's a concession that can be made below that, because it does seem like the 4 blast is I think it's 19B or something like that regulation. I don't know. Kevin Gallagher's a real train nut, and he was in my
He
office
is a
today,
train
and
nut.
he was spouting off some kind of laws about that. So
So I feel like before Grafton were to approach a congressman, we need some kind of plan.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like, when you make the approach, it's, here's what we're thinking about doing. And it's, one way, no one way, whatever the actual engineered thing is that we're going to go ask, and petition to have granted, that we have to kind of have that in hand.
Yeah.
Unless what you're suggesting is that McGovern's going to help fund it or whatever,
there is a good slideshow that they gave at the time that talked about funding mechanisms. They were going after the bond bill and trying to get some Fed dollars, I believe, too. Which we may at this point be looking at an entirely different structure on how to do that, right? They've already redone some of the gates. We have funding to go after some improvements to the intersection. So if this is just ancillary to what we're already planning on funding, then that might change the conversation a little bit.
So who would do the requirements analysis and design and proposal? Like Grafton, Upton took that on.
They did, and so we have a design of the intersection as it sits now. We also have the design. Sorry, I had closed it. We also have the design of that intersection, which they call B, which is essentially, I'm not saying it's exactly the same, but it's pretty close to what Paul is working on right now.
Option B.
Yeah, alternative B.
Alternative B. Okay.
So, I'm
But
gonna
Alternative B doesn't get us to a quiet zone though.
not according
just
not according to
traffic flow.
their presentation. And again, I think there's a couple of facts that either I missed in reviewing the data or didn't come out at the time. I don't know that I understand the why entirely. Right.
Yeah, so that's the key piece. Because you want to solve the noise issue.
Yep.
Right. We all agree
Yep.
that traffic improvements, thumbs up.
Right.
We
Yep.
voted
We
on
want
that last week. Fantastic. Kind of
Yep.
guns blazing on that one. I think I don't know if it seems like at this point, if the town's going to do anything, I think what we should do is clarify what that requirement is.
Yep.
For the quiet zone and see if there's an alternative to the one way. Because that seems like the key piece.
Yeah.
If it's just a one way and that's like the kind of penalty for the quiet zone, then I think we gotta either accept what has happened already with the community outreach that was done. And I think the sort of, in the end, they just said as a community, we don't want to do the one way and we'll take the noise. And so that was kind of their decision. Or if there's an alternative, then, kind of present that and then go the Congress route. That's my feeling on it.
So do you want to start with doing public outreach to see if the community's even interested before we go
I
down
want to do the
any-
one way.
I think we need the why first. Is that
The
what
why.
you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why? Yeah.
Yeah. To
Because
better,
if there
to-
is another
to-
option
to,
that
to clarify the why, right?
Yeah.
Because if it's because that's what we felt at the time, but there's no data behind it. Great, and again,
Right.
it might be in there. I can rewatch the outreach meeting. Maybe somebody asked that question and I missed it.
Yeah. Who did the analysis?
So it was Grafton Upton Railroad had designs drawn up by. Sorry. No, they have PowerPoint has a Grafton Upton Railroad seal right over where it says who drew the plans. But I do have the plan, so I have to double check. But they had an engineer draw up design plans.
Okay.
In accordance with what they were trying to do, as well as what FRA would require of that intersection. And then we had it peer reviewed by PAR. So we have their peer review document as well.
But PAR's review wouldn't have been the design meeting the quiet zone requirements, would it have been?
It does talk about the quiet zone.
Does it?
It does.
Okay.
But I'm just not comfortable giving you guys the why.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah. No.
I'm watching somebody else's meetings.
The key question is, so this one meets quiet zone
Yes.
requirements. Is there another design
Correct.
that doesn't have a one way? That's
and
that's the-
I can certainly, I'll reach back out to Mike and have that conversation with him. I'll rewatch some of that information. I'm sure that the why exists. I just don't have it at my time.
And I'd be happy to work with Evan and even.
You want to come watch some YouTubes in my office?
No.
Double speed?
No.
I know you do.
Did she? She said I had ADD.
Yeah.
So
You'd probably like it then. It's
gotta
like
go really- it's gotta go really fast.
draws you in. Twice as fast.
Okay.
all right.
So we can put that in motion, Ray.
yeah.
And I
Okay.
appreciate the latitude of giving me time to actually go and watch all of that stuff and find the documents in the server and figure out what they were try to get my head around what they were doing back in 2019.
Colleen, I will look at them. So.
Oh, I'm gonna send it to you, so. There you go.
It is very helpful, let me tell you, because trying to search around and find the meeting and then figure out where it is, and you literally just call Colleen and it magically appears in your inbox.
Cause that was a lot of the time where I was just sitting out in the audience, so I was like, oh, I went to
Actually,
that
I saw
one.
you
went
in there.
Yeah.
A couple times I'm like, oh, there's Colleen.
All right, so are we good with the Grafton Upton Railroad for now?
Yep.
Okay, so moving on to 5-year forecast discussion.
Yeah, here we go.
What is tonight? Does that sound louder than?
The camera's making a lot of noise.
Is it the camera?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
louder than normal.
It's the fan.
Dusty, maybe?
This guy. Yeah, sorry. Thank you.
Just hit it. See what happens.
I'm not touching.
Everything you're here.
Bill's like, oh.
All I need.
Yeah.
Now they're shutting the camera.
No model for you.
I actually said to them, no one's listening. All right.
Your five's droopy.
Yeah, it just won't come up. I deleted it like 9 times and moved it around. It's just where it is.
That's the font.
Yep. So I said, you know what? Ray will probably criticize me. But
I didn't criticize.
we'll deal
I
with
thought
it. We'll deal
it
with
was an observation.
Very stylish.
yeah, it's like a postmodern five.
Okay,
Anyway,
moving on.
let's move on. So I want to clarify at the beginning of this, and this is what this is and what it is not. And I also want to talk about why some of the detail I go into will be in here, because I've watched past presentations and this is slightly different. So this presentation includes financial data that is a snapshot in time, and a lot of that data is a moving target, right? They're presumptions that we're making about what's going to happen in the municipal environment. I treat all my financial forecasting as a living document. It has to be flexible, and we're in there playing around with some consistency. As different data comes in, as different numbers roll in, as we change our kind of perceptions and thought and what the budget's going to do and what capital's going to do, we tweak all of these things on a rolling basis. We've based all of this information on our historic trends and any present day data that we have available for this current fiscal year to inform those trends. And I also want to preface that this presentation is an example of a broader tool that we use. It is a massive spreadsheet with tons of data, and we're going over basically the summary pages in this. So there's a whole bunch of stuff on the back end. When we move to do our budget book and start putting together our budget documents, more of that data is included in that process, and graphs and data representations and all the rest of it. And so we're going to be building that as we move forward. No one should look at this and think this is the end all be all, that's the number that we're going to hit at some date, because it's not going to be that exact number. It's not a static document that's meant to predict everything that changes in the market. It's not an entirety of the data, and it's not us just guessing and doing this pie in the sky. I think we're going to have X revenue from something that hasn't materialized. We do not want to be on that side of the coin. We want to be on the pragmatic, realistic side of that coin, even if that hurts. And it would be much nicer to just think optimistically that we're going to get some kind of revenue. So as we go through this, there's baseline assumptions that are available both in the master spreadsheet, but I want to point out what some of these are. So we're making assumptions that informs the output, right? So our tax levy, our new growth projections come through our principal assessor. Historically, they've hovered between 280K and 500,000. I'll keep with the thousands moving forward. I won't say K and thousand.
The projections from that office
Correct.
came in at 280 to 500.
That's the historic presentation of that amount,
But that's not actuals.
not actuals.
Yep. Okay.
We're currently estimating at 800,000 because our actuals have been $1 million, $1.2 million.
Yep.
We also don't want to put $1.2 million in here and assume we're going to hit the high water mark. That's not really great budgeting either.
How long have we been at $1.2 million?
I think we have
Approximate in that-
two fiscal years.
Okay, all right.
Debt exclusions of roughly 4 million. We have a capital override exclusion, and we have the operating budget overrides from 2015 and 2021. We have again, you have a lot of this information. I want to make sure that everybody has this information. We have a split tax rate with a consistent 1% shift to the CIP. State aid and other offsets. Our Chapter 70 is not the direct aid category. That goes to our regional school districts. We do get Chapter 70 estimated at about 12.6 million. And our UGA, it's called, which is the unrestricted general government aid, is estimated about 1.7 with an increase somewhere between 1.5% and 2% annually. Okay, sorry. Local receipts. We usually factor in, we're roughly around 12%, lowered by 12% per DLS at 4.5 million. We have one cannabis shop that's open and two others that are in progress. I do want to pause here and say that the governor, the legislature passed a bill that the governor recently signed. It's called S 3096, and it effectively strips most of your host community agreement money away. There's two different camps. One seems to think that it took effect immediately, and some think that it only impacts when you are renegotiating the next host agreement. And so we're going to have to figure out how that plays out with our expected cannabis revenues. I will also tell you that as we look at these projections, there's not a whole heck of a lot of cannabis revenue in there, and that's the reason.
The most optimistic view of that ruling, though, or that legislation, is that all of our host agreements and the associated revenue will sunset.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So there's a life expectancy either.
It could be now, or it could be 3, 4,
3 years.
5 years from now.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Got it.
And so I've not included large amounts of host money in here for that reason. Motor vehicle excise is the largest receipt, followed by departmental income and permits, and we have a modest amount of meals tax. So if you go look at the background data, it's not, it's money, but it's not, that's not what's floating Grafton is meals tax. Available funds and other financial resources. So we have free cash certifications that are around $2 million, give or take, and around 3% of the budget. We usually utilize 1.2 to 1.7 million annually. I think that is a little bit of a false number, because as we draw more on our capital override, that number I think will stabilize a little bit less,
Right.
because we're not wholly focused on free cash. We have a different source. So I think that number is a little misleading, but nonetheless true, I guess. And our annual overlay usually hovers at about 0.7% of the tax levy. Your overlay is what you use for abatements and refunds and all of that stuff. And then we have enterprise receipts. So we have an enterprise fund, which is the sewer department, and that is self-funding. And all of the indirect costs are paid from the enterprise receipts rather than a revenue transfer. And that's how we show it on our town meeting documents, essentially. Okay, so expenditures. Personnel expenses recently increased by 2.4% for the town, excluding education. That's probably a good baseline to keep tagging in there, although with cost of living adjustments and step raises, it's higher than that. You're probably closer to a 4% number to be stable.
Can you say that again?
So
I know what that meant, but
yes,
for
so
everyone else.
right. So the municipal system works a little differently than the private sector, right? And so you have annual steps, in which they're usually a 2.5% spread, 2% spread, and then you have the cost of living adjustment, which is what we adjust the entirety of the grid for to match inflation or whatever. It never does, but that's what it's designed to do. So you wind up being more at a 4% increase as opposed to say what this says at 2.4.
So 2.4 is just the cost of living year over year, doesn't include the steps.
Yep.
Got it.
Correct. Grafton Municipal, this is just telling you some basic facts, right? So we have the GMEA, which is our admin and like highway dispatch. That's a union that we negotiate with. And there's also the Grafton Police Alliance. And we do have some pretty direct pressure to increase staffing in public safety due to growing population. So that's going to be one of our cost drivers. Expenses, Grafton's largest expense segment, education, is about 58.5% of the budget. We plan to continually utilize our road and capital stabilization funds to reduce the backlog of large projects. Our fiscal 23 budget really reflects normalized costs post-COVID. And so that was an important fact that we wanted to put in here because everybody's waiting for that other shoe to drop, and we think we're past that now. Grafton has one enterprise for sewer, and I already talked about that, sorry. Just really making sure you know that sewer's an enterprise fund. Okay, education, we have obviously we have a K through 12 district and Blackstone Valley School. And it's important to note that the Blackstone Valley Technical School has a small amount of debt service. I think it's actually like $28,000 that's built into our annual assessment, so that has a sunset provision in it. Debt service, so we have fairly significant level of debt in which we're paying out about $5 million annually. However, as percentage of budget, they're actually on the decline, and they were as high as about 9% in 2017.
I'm gonna ask a tough question,
Sure.
but it's not that tough. Can you put this into context with other communities in our area? 9% as a, percentage of the total budget.
10% of your total budget is
that typical?
No, I think that's high.
Okay.
I would feel that was high. Let me preface that. So if you build a new school, in the immediate years following, it is not high.
Okay.
Because it's such a huge project, right?
Because we still have the high school bond going.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Or another.
And so you see that, it's kind of the typical is a little misleading because I think that, if they built, the town built a high school 10 years ago, let's say, sorry, then 9%, 10% with everything else feels pretty high, looks pretty high in the metric. But I've seen, there are towns out there that are at 15, 18% because they've got such a small budget and they have such, how do you finance a $110 million school?
Yep.
Which they're not 110 million anymore. They're 200 million.
Yeah,
Right.
way above that.
It's unbelievable. So I think that skews that data a little bit. I think you almost want to, and don't tell the school committee or Jay that I said this, but you want to strip the school out of that a little bit, in my mind, to look at what we're doing on the municipal side with debt and structuring and when they fall off and when they roll off, because you almost always have a school bond for a building, right? Because by the time you pay a building off, there's another building that needs to be built.
Sure.
It's just the nature of how this stuff works.
Okay. So, but in your opinion, we're on the high side of that, but not too high.
Well, we were maybe back in 2017. I think we're in perfectly fine shape now. When we have our S&P ratings call, our debt profile is highly advantageous for us.
Okay. All right. Good.
All right, capital plan. So we use free cash, debt, and capital stabilization. Total capital spend each year is greater than 1.5 million. Risk management, our comp insurance is forecasted to increase slightly. Unemployment compensation, we've been able to hold at level, which is good. And workers' comp is funded based on insurance company input. So we basically just deal with the bill that they generate based on our losses there. Employee benefits. So all of our health insurance is through Harvard Pilgrim. We have a single plan. We are our single provider. We are currently working with the what's called the PEC committee to research other options, including GIC and other regional things that we think might help stabilize and or drive down the cost a little bit. We've projected life insurance to be flat. And Medicare is projected to increase 3% annually, and we've just built that right in. The assessments we base on Worcester Regional Retirement, and those fluctuate, based on what's happening with our employee base. State assessments, our largest charges are for tuition assessments, and we estimate everything in here is based on historical cherry sheet reporting, which if you average it out over the long term, gives you the number. Okay. So miscellaneous. There are no miscellaneous amounts projected at this time. Will and I talked about this because it seems ridiculous to have a slide that says that there's nothing. However, there very well could be miscellaneous things, and it's an actual category that we use in our budgeting process. So we want to make sure that we're explaining that.
Placeholder, sure.
Yeah. Other amounts to be raised. So cherry sheet offsets for libraries and, a large amount for school choice. Grafton is doing very well in that area. Overlay is variable based on budgetary constraints. And so what that means is there are some communities that build kind of a war chest in overlay to do like their reval years and things like that. We have not been historically doing that. That might be a practice that we shift to, so that you're, rather than coming up with a big chunk of money to do a reval, you put in a little money over 5 years, and then you've got your bucket of money to do your reval, and you just keep doing that as a cycle. Other financing uses, appropriations, so not line item transfers made in the current fiscal year but reported on the subsequent fiscal year recap. We have modest transfers to OPEB and annual transfers from PEG to reserve to pay for expenditures. So that, again, that's the cable access is paying for some administrative fees into the general fund budget. And we have no regular transfers to the stabilization fund. So this is important because these are problems that we need to hone in on, right? Our OPEB contribution needs to get better. And we need to figure out a way to regularly transfer money into our stabilization fund. We need to build that up. It's not.
So it's opportunistic now.
Right.
Yeah.
And that plays into what you have for levy capacity and everything else down the road. Because we can eat into that capacity a little bit and build up some savings for when everything's not great. Enterprise fund, so sewer enterprise. Man, I got this in there a lot.
Love
Basically, anyways, we have a sewer enterprise fund. It's just like 9 different ways for me to say they're paying indirect and direct costs. I think Paul and I got a hold of my PowerPoint.
You met with them too.
I did. I left it unattended. So, two last things. This is our other category. So the town votes annually at town meeting for revolving funds and CPA. The first action permits the collecting of fees that we then put into a revolving account that does not need a taxpayer appropriation to spend out. And that's a big, long list that we do at the beginning of the year. CPA funds are collected through a tax bill surcharge, separately from general fund and property tax levy. Town meeting articles and actions, capital and road stabilization. So 2014, you guys voted in favor of an override for special purpose of stabilization fund for municipal roads. 21, you voted in favor of an override for the capital stabilization fund. Both allow for an override without appropriation for as little as the amount from the prior year or as much as 2.5% over the prior year, and that's decided by a vote of the select board at the first meeting in October. Okay, now on to numbers. Thank you for sitting through that. Again, I think that is good underlying information, but I also want this when the general public goes to look at this, they can look at some of those assumptions of how we got here. So these are your general fund revenues. So if you look, we have drawn out based on historical data what our property tax levy will do all the way out to fiscal 28. Enterprise fund, available funds, other financing sources. Now, just to point out, you'll see that in fiscal 23 it's $1,045,000, and then in 24, it's 2.5. That's your bond proceed, or that's your bond coming into play. Your estimated local offset receipts and your cherry sheet. So again, looked at historical trend and just draw that out. So your revenue change hovers around almost 4% to as low as 3% based on the data that we have in front of us today. These are your expenditures, and I call out something here because this is if we left new growth at 800,000, which is what we did, and we feel comfortable at that number given the prospectus of growth in Grafton. I do want to preface though, housing market changes, other environmental impacts, that might look rosy if we have an economic downturn, and we would have to adjust. So the bottom line is that your general fund surplus.
You'd see that coming though.
Yep,
I mean,
but
generally,
what I'm saying is,
like,
I'm really hedging my bets that, yes, it says we're gonna have a $641,000 general fund surplus by the time we get to FY28. But if you see that downturn and it hits us in 25, 26, that number's absolute garbage. Will not look like that number.
Sure. So I had a huge problem with the 800.
Yep.
Not a huge problem, but
That's okay.
historically, it's been a little
Yep.
up and down and whatnot. But then I reconsidered it a little bit in the sense that if we were to have an economic downturn, we've got a bunch of stuff that's in progress, right?
Yep.
Shovels are in the ground. We've got all this.
Right.
That stuff isn't going to stop, very likely.
Right.
So for the next couple of years, I think we're still fine as far as these projections go. If municipal 5-year projections are like every other projection on the planet, they're only good for 2 to 3 years anyways. You want to do them for 5 years, but they're only reliable really for 2 to 3 years. And that's optimistic.
Well, in my personal experience, they're good for a year, right? Because everything changes. And,
Sure.
And as much as we like to think that we're really good at finance and we can plan, there's always something that you just don't see coming or change. And it could be very much to the positive. I'm not even saying that.
Right.
I'm more than happy to have a garbage 5-year forecast to the better.
Yep.
But I think that we just that's one of the reasons I wanted to stress that this is a living document for us. Like we will capture pieces of this and bring it out at meetings when we need to look at the financials of the town of Grafton. But in Mary and my office, we have a shared version of this where things get tweaked
Sure.
to then figure out what happens if, and we're gonna keep doing that. So again, this is your grand total. It shows you pretty close to what the last thing is, but I think that the next slide is what everybody wants to talk about. And so this is your excess levy capacity and or override remainder. People talk about it in different ways here. And what you'll see is, our excess levy capacity in 2024 is 1.1. And then if we make no corrective action, and if 800,000 is the number for new growth and all other things remain the same, we would be down to $100,000 in levy capacity by fiscal 28. I think this is a pessimistic outlook. I think that we're gonna be able to flatten that curve a little bit more with some, moderate growth.
Well, depending on the type of growth.
To a certain degree.
So, yeah, it is, so, if we build 1,000 apartments in Grafton with 600 more kids going into the school department, school system, it kind of knocks it down a little bit.
It does to a certain degree. I don't think that the impact that we'd see to the schools is quite as large as people think it's going to be, because we've had that Chapter 70 realignment, and we've got a more favorable formula.
They also did a study in 2019, which, you know,
Yep.
the school department doesn't have that concern. And that included up to, Pine Street, I believe. So, you know, I don't know. So I don't think that, well, to kind of echo what Evan's saying, I don't have those same concerns.
Okay.
That, you know, because what we'd be talking about is essentially having to build additional capacity. And as far as the 2019 study that I saw that the schools funded it wasn't showing that we were going to need a lot of additional capacity that we would have to build out. So, anyways, that's my understanding of it. But
I'd like to see a big warehouse that creates 1,000 jobs. Big warehouse.
Okay, so,
Oh, and not the one on, I'm sorry, not the one on Wyman Gordon. I saw Colleen go like that and I went, oh geez, wrong
yeah,
one.
I
No,
was just gonna move right on.
no, but Pine Street, I'd like to know.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, disregard all of that, okay?
Anyways,
Now I'm gonna get letters.
probably.
so there's some variables there, right? New growth, commercial, residential, what happens to the housing market. Those things can impact your financial future. Chapter 70, I don't see, you know, once they change the formula to the better, it never goes the other way. So I don't think we have that concern. And I would, while I rate that as a variable, I think it's a positive of what we've seen. It's probably the greatest positive that the town of Grafton had to come out of COVID.
Yep.
Honestly, it is what it is.
That's a reset, but flat now, though.
Yeah.
I would anticipate, right?
Yeah, right. And I just want to preface, I didn't put it in here because I think they're going to take it away. I just think that, like, it has to be acknowledged that is a variable that does not show up in our historic data because our historic data was flat and now we're going to be flat again, but we're going to be up here.
Right.
That's probably a better way to explain that. Borrowing, right? What's on the horizon? So we're currently trying to get a better handle on what things we're going to need to borrow and when, right? Large capital purchases that cannot be handled with our capital stabilization free cash. And, you know, we talk about this stuff. We've talked about radios. We've talked about George Hill Road. We've talked about a lot of these things. And what does that do and when to these projections? Because that's going to alter what we're doing precipitously. And then staffing, right? So we know we're driving some changes to public safety. You know, what is the municipal outlook, which I think is pretty flat, to be honest with you. When we do our staffing projections, I don't see anything out there. And then the schools, what's happening with their staffing, and what does that change over time look like? So what's next? So we do not have school department final projections yet. This was our desire to get this out in August. We will be continuing to work with the school department on final projections, and we will give you all those numbers wrapped into these. I mean, this is going to sound bad, but sometime between October and January, because we're working through the budget process.
Sure.
And so that I think is what it is. You know, we made some assumptions in here based on history, but you know, I don't speak for the school department in any way. So we're heading into the budget process, and what we're requesting from municipal departments is a level services budget, regardless of what this is. We want to remain level services. And then we're going to start working on our mid-year budget to actual spending and departmental review, which is comes out in January. That's your 6-month spend mark, and so that should be able to benchmark against what our presumptions are here, but also what is happening to our department line items in light of inflation, you know, lead times, supply chain, blah 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 blah, because that's going to drive the underlying assumptions that we're making in our financial projections of what we need to spend year out, right? So if you're projecting a department grows by 3.3%, but everything that department buys is going up by 10 to 20%, well, you're never going to hold 3.3% and remain level services. So we have to look at that. We're currently working through the capital plan. I met with some folks today to try to drive that forward. We're starting to put together the outline of the budget book, and all of this, this will be on our website anyways, but we're going to be there's a financial projection section of our budget book that will be updated with the visual representations. And that's it.
Very nice. Thank you very much for putting all of that together. Does the board have any questions or comments?
No, nice job.
That was phenomenal.
Yep.
Thank you, Evan.
Thank you.
I mean, the
Yep,
level
nice
of
job.
detail that's in the spreadsheet you sent us is just, it's off the hook.
Obviously, Will helped.
Yes.
I proofread.
He does. He sits in my office and tells me what I spelled that wrong. Need a hyphen.
And this is all tied to Vader.
Not directly.
Okay.
Vadar will give us the reporting in this format that
Yep.
we then can plug over.
Right.
So, with our new chart of accounts and the way we're doing it, all of this data is, let me put it this way, the data is now readily available.
Right.
We tell it what we want the report to do. The report is the same as this, and we plug it in. Whereas in our former software, we're digging for this and we're getting this information. Some of this information we're not even getting from our own system. We're getting it on DLS's website. Because it's easier, quite honestly.
Right.
To get it off of your LA4 and other forms for year end.
The fact that the data is exported though versus manufactured or produced or I don't want to use unkind words, but made up. Like, I mean, it's leaps and bounds from what we were a few years ago. So I really appreciate the fact that this is just an export with the assumptions built into the actual spreadsheets, and the fact that it's really nice that we can run what if scenarios, right? So if we run into that economic downturn or whatever, you can just immediately sort of turn on, change the assumptions, and then it just generates, and it all flows pretty well. So that's huge. I don't think a lot of people probably appreciate how much work goes into making the mechanics of that work, but I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I do not want to take the credit for it. I want to make sure that, Mary is the driver of a lot of that. So we work on these things together. We did work with a consultant to a certain degree, but we wanted to create a product that lasts for Grafton, right? So, Evan gets hit by a bus tomorrow. Mary, decides she can't work without me. That tool is there. That tool is always there, and the tool is set up so that you can just plug in your variables and your new numbers, and it's going to give us this projection.
That's just unbelievable.
So we're pretty jazzed about it. And I do also want to, thank Jay and Anita because they've been working with us consistently. We've had a lot of conversations about projections and where we're headed, and we're working on all that stuff together. So it's one big team, and then we'll proofread some stuff.
One town, one budget.
That's right.
He didn't pick up on the Drupal 5, but
No, no.
I don't like to lead with criticism.
Yeah, I think he lets a couple things slide in there so that I always look a little bit bad, so that he can be like, I told you to fix that. No. We have a great finance team, school in town, and I'm happy. I think it's, I think it's a good document.
Perfect.
Yep.
All right. If that's all we have about the 5-year projections, we can move right on to the government and education channel coverage request by policy updates.
Sure. If I can find where I put it. Yep. So this is functionally the same policy that we were looking at a week ago. We did change the policy section a little bit so that we didn't have names, we just had titles and contact information. And one thing Bob DeToma asked us to include was this paragraph right here about televised coverage in camera-capable rooms. So conference room A and conference room F have the capacity to go out live to television. Any rooms like G or B or things like that, you would need to hook up an owl and then rebroadcast it. And he just wanted that explicitly stated in the policy.
How are the owls going? I've heard mixed reviews where if you hook up two, it's great, but one, not so much. And is that knowledge being spread?
Yeah, so we have an owl user guide that Bob and I put together in tandem to send out to people as they need them. We actually need to update it to include daisy chaining owls.
Okay.
That's something we just figured out a couple of weeks ago. But I would say mixed reviews is accurate as we learn all the tips and tricks that you can do with them. They're neat pieces of technology, so.
You know what's a real bummer?
What?
Is we bought the Owl Pros, and then 3 months later they came out with the Owl 3, which has deployable microphones to fix the sound issues. And they're not backward compatible. It's really frustrating. The hooking the two of them up together, we've done it a couple times now, and the audio and video quality is much better when you're in a room like this. It really makes a whole world of difference.
I can imagine.
So we just gotta make sure that when folks want to use the owls, that they have the knowledge to do that, and also that they try the owls again, because a lot of people tried it and it wasn't great, and then they don't want to use it anymore.
Yep.
But we use them with regularity just around the building, anyways, for video conferencing and stuff like that.
Very cool. All right, does the board have any questions or comments about this policy update? If not, I can take a motion.
I move the board vote to approve and sign the government and education channel coverage request policy as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Declare the motion carried. Excellent. All right, now we're on to select board reports. Does anybody have anything they'd like to discuss?
Just want to talk about the visit today?
Yeah.
Go for it.
All right. So Matt, Evan, and I went, and Chief Matthew went down to the Southeastern Massachusetts Regional 911 District in Foxborough. Here are some pictures of that visit. It was just to get a view of what it's like to be in a regional dispatch center. And I gotta be honest, I was blown away. It was pretty incredible. Being in that room, watching everybody work, and just seeing the possibilities of what regionalization can bring to Grafton if we decide to go down that route. You want to add on at all? Or?
No, I think they were really gracious and giving us the whole tour. It's a really impressive facility. It's brand new. It's pretty big. They've built to have the capacity to be able to add additional towns over time. I was really impressed with the director down there. He's been with them for day one. He actually designed and built their whole server room, which was impressive to say the least. I really appreciated their like full welcome of the towns, and he was just so passionate about what they had put together and how well it was working and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's a really interesting opportunity for Grafton to continue to evaluate. So I found a lot of value in doing it. I'd be interested if we could to see if maybe there's another one we could look at that maybe isn't quite as that one was pretty large and pretty far along.
Yeah.
I'd love to find a district that's forming or more recently formed maybe to kind of just catch somebody kind of in the thick of the implementation, because it seems like that's there's a lot of logistics to making that kind of change. I'd love to talk to somebody potentially that kind of has a good perspective on the challenges to that and how they overcame those challenges, what they still have outstanding and whatnot. But it was great. I thought it was a really good, positive visit.
Yeah, they're great. The folks at Semric, that's the second time I've been there. They're really nice hosts, and answer any question you got, and you can tell that they're passionate about it, because that's their baby. But that is an exemplary facility. I mean, it's really cool. So we will schedule another tour of a different regional. Hopefully it's August, right? So in September, I'd like to try to get one, and we can try to visit one that's closer to the new end, and in an interim environment.
Another thing I wanted to mention was this past weekend, the India flag raising ceremony happened at the Municipal Center. Andy, myself, and Matt attended that, and that was really wonderful. So I wanted to thank the India Association of Greater Boston as well as the Blackstone Valley India Association for hosting the event. And I also wanted to recognize the middle schoolers who played the American National Anthem as well as the Indian National Anthem. That was pretty fabulous. Does Town Administrator have any reports?
I don't really have any reports. I've literally been working on regional dispatch and these numbers since we met last time. So,
Okay.
Will, do you have anything to report?
Nope.
I don't know what Will's been doing, but I've been real busy.
Been fixing my iPad.
That's right. That's pretty much it. Took 7 days, but it's open again. No.
Does the board have any correspondence they want to discuss? All right, there are no resignations. Is there anybody here for public comment? Nobody on Zoom.
You have no hands on Zoom.
Fantastic. And then we have a couple meeting minutes to approve. Or just one, it looks like.
Yeah, I move the board vote to approve the meeting minutes for February 15th, 2022 as written.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Declare the motion carried. We have no reason to go into executive session, so we can adjourn the
Make a
meeting.
motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Declare the motion carried. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night.